Welcome to r/RedditRevenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. Thank you friends for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story. I call the cops and report Sarah and Jessica because they were bad neighbors. The second story. My manager screwed up when she asked me to review my performance. The third story. Coworker threatened me with dismissal. I filed a complaint against her and she will be fired. The first story is, pick your battles a little more carefully. So basically, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment 2 months ago with Sarah and Jessica. Names changed. Now, Sarah is on the lease. Jessica is Sarah's friend and isn't on the lease. I pay 50%, Sarah pays 25%, and Jessica pays 25% of rent. Not my ideal situation, but I was desperate for roommates at the time. Fast forward 2 months. They're enormous slobs who never do anything, so I clean up after them all the time. I vacuum the living room, mop the kitchen, do dishes, etc. I buy most of the shared groceries and household items like TP, which the two of them plow through really quickly. Sarah has a cat in the apartment which is unauthorized, and regularly has an unauthorized dog here too. Their rent is paid late, and utilities on the last possible day. Also, the girls smoke, and while I don't care, I asked them to be respectful enough to air out to the apartment and keep the smoke out of my room. Now, last week, SH goes south. Sarah and Jessica overheard me being about having to clean up after them, and after ignoring me for a few days, sent me a long text message about how rude they considered that, etc. So I let out everything that was bothering me, and tell them that if they don't want to live with me, I'll gladly release them from the lease, repay the deposit, and they can go. This causes them to freak out and they tell me, it's 2 against 1, we will force you to move. Oh hell no. I blocked them on all forms of social media and means of communication. The next day, I went down to the apartment managers and reported the 2 unauthorized pets and the unauthorized occupant. Written notices were given. Sarah and Jessica threw them straight in the trash. I returned from a 4-day stay at my dad's and go straight to report the unauthorized occupant, Jessica, who's already once been asked to leave. And both unauthorized pets, which were supposed to be gone by now. Well, at this point, Sarah and Jessica are getting peeved off. Jessica screams obscenities at me anytime I enter or leave my bedroom. Twice she spent a half-hour period pounding on my door and the walls of my room. She taunts me through the door trying to get me to open up. All of this is being quietly recorded on my phone while I still haven't said a word. So yesterday I went back down to the office to finish securing my new apartment and to report more violations. When I came home, the chain lock was locked, so I had no way to get in. This is what I had been waiting for. Jessica taunts me again on video, and then slaps my hat off my head, hitting me square in the forehead with the back of her hand. Bingo! The revenge. I call the cops, rat Sarah and Jessica out for being druggies, get all their paraphernalia confiscated, and get a police report for battery. Come Monday, I'll be on my way to the prosecutor's office to press charges. The apartment managers will also be getting a copy of this report. Also, tomorrow's the last day to pay rent before it's late. Sarah and Jessica disappeared early this morning. If they don't pay rent, I'm gonna get them on the abandonment clause, finally get them evicted, and have the locks changed. All before I move out tomorrow. It's 2 against 1? Think again. The second story is, my performance review that became my manager's performance review. I was the top salesperson by a large margin at a location that was vastly underperforming. My sales manager accused me of lying in front of the VP. I proved I wasn't lying. I was working with a B2B sales company. We sold services to companies, basically. And this company had managed to hire the most incompetent, lazy, and jealous sales manager I've ever come across. We were a team of 5 salespeople and a sales manager. All 5 of us salespeople hated our sales manager for various reasons, but we liked her personally. I was the top salesperson on the team. I was sitting at 170% of my yearly objective, and was well on my way to President's Club. This is largely because I was the only salesperson on the team with real sales experience, and the sales manager was too incompetent to train a team. So my VP came down for our yearly performance reviews, and I was called in first. It was my VP and Mrs. B, short for B. I was expecting a positive performance review. Right off the bat, Mrs. B hits me with, Sting, you know our location hasn't been performing at objective for a number of years, and we suspect this is because salespeople are misrepresenting their daily work. I'm taken back. Sting, I don't think you're actually doing what you say you're doing in your CRM. This is something that could get you fired. I looked at Mrs. B and I said, really? She said, yeah. I hit her back with, I'm shocked you decided to go this route. Mrs. B with a confident smile said, "We gotta do what it takes to get this location on objective." I said, "Alright, let's play a game. Mrs. B, pick a day, any day in the CRM, and let me prove to you that I went to all my appointments and did all my stops as recorded." Well, Sting, I'm not saying you never go in the field, I just think some days you stay at home and put in BS notes in the CRM. I said, "Mrs. B, pick a day, any day. Pick a day you think I lied about my sales activities." So Mrs. B picks a day. Now I'm smiling ear to ear, and I'm effing heated right now. I notice the VP is smiling at me and his head is slanted to one side. I suspected he knew Mrs. B was about to get absolutely effing owned, and he was right. So she gives me the day and I turn to the VP. "Mr. VP, are you aware of how Android phones work?" VP responds, "Enlighten me." I said, "By default, Android has location services turned on, and in fact, Google will track where you went and when. Naturally, I carry my phone everywhere, so let's compare what Google says I did that day to what my CRM says." So I pull up my Google location services for that day, and surprise, surprise is a match. Mrs. B is obviously very concerned at this point. I said, "I'm actually quite enjoying this performance review. Let's pick another day, Mrs. B." Mrs. B fires back, "We don't need to do that." I turn to the VP. "Mr. VP, would you mind picking a day?" He says, "Sure. What about XYZ?" He pulls up my CRM. I pull up my location services for that day. Guess what? It's a match. I then get ready to pull out the big guns. "Mr. VP, do you remember company XYZ with a contract value of excess of $1 million that we lost recently?" "Yes, Sting, I remember. Apparently our competitor won them over on price. We can't win them all." "Mr. VP, here's an email from their VP, basically stating that they've decided not to go with us for our failure to provide 3 samples for them to decide on which product worked best for them." "Sting, can you forward that to me?" "Sure, not a problem, Mr. VP." Forward it over. "Mr. VP, while I'm at this, let me forward you over several email chains before this, where I clearly asked Mrs. B to order those samples. In fact, in those very same email chains, she confirmed that she had in fact ordered the sample. He asked me to forward those emails to him, so I did. Now, Mr. VP, I had our service department look to see if any orders had been placed for those samples. No orders were actually placed. He said, "I'm gonna look into this." Mrs. B is effing sweating mother effing bullets at this point. My performance review has just turned into her performance review, and SH is not going right. "Mr. VP, I have one more thing I'd like to bring to your attention. Do you mind if I step outside for a minute so I can show you?" He said, "Sure. I need to have a talk with Mrs. B anyway." Now, I need to mention that several years prior to this, a general manager at another location harassed a woman. The company was sued and lost a lot of money because of this. Since this incident, the company put in a very clear-cut policy. No sexual relations between management people who work for them. It's immediate termination for the manager. Now, another sales consultant in the office was named Joe. Joe was a married man with 2 beautiful kids, and Mrs. B had the hots for him. She tried to have sex with him multiple times, twice on text. Joe and I had talked about if he should report this transgression. I walked into the sales office and said, "Joe, I think it's time we get a new sales manager. You got those texts?" He looks at me and goes, "Is today gonna be the day?" I said, "Today's gonna be the day." All the sales staff knew what was going on. The mood in the office was lifted. Joe and I began walking back to the conference room when the location manager, who was not a part of the performance review, saw Joe and I. He asked what's going on, and Joe said, "You're gonna need to hire a new sales manager soon." Location manager was confused. He said he's coming into the meeting. We said fine. I knocked on the door. Mr. VP said come on in, so I did. There we stood, Joe, myself, and the location manager. Mrs. B knew exactly what was about to happen. We all took our seats and I asked the VP, "Mr. VP, I just want to clarify a company policy." "Sure. Is it true that if a manager tried to engage in a sexual relationship with a direct report, that it's immediate termination for that manager?" Mr. VP sits up straight, takes a moment and goes, "Yes, if something like that came to my attention, my hands would be tied. I'd have to fire the manager." I said, "Well, Joe has something he wants to show you." Mrs. B got up and walked out of the conference room. She was about to cry, you could tell. Her world, her career had just completely wrecked, and I don't think she wanted to be around for the end. Joe went on to tell the VP how he's happily married man, with 2 beautiful kids, and Mrs. B kept on hitting on him. In fact, she had sent him numerous sexual texts, and on 2 occasions openly invited him to come have sex with her. Once in the office and once at his home, even after he had made it clear he wasn't gonna have sex with her. Mr. VP asked to see the texts, and Joe provided them. The VP asked him to screenshot those and email those over. Joe said he would. Then the VP said, "I'm gonna need both of you to go back to the sales office. The location manager and I have some talking to do. We walk back into the sales office. I noticed the sales manager office had looked clean out. Apparently Mrs. B was bawling. She was a wreck and crying, and said she was going home. Joe laughed and said, yeah, she won't be coming back. It was about 20 to 25 minutes when the VP came into the sales office and asked me to come into the conference room again, so I did. I sat down and the VP said, well, I'd like to inform you that Mrs. B has been terminated effective immediately. With this being said, after your performance review and looking over your numbers, you're our top sales rep in this location and deserve nothing short of stellar remarks on your review, and you'll be getting that, I said. Thank you. I do have one question, he said. Sure, anything. How do I apply for new sales manager job that just opened up? Mr. VP laughed and said, you sure do like to strike while the iron is hot, don't you? I said I do. He said he'd let the location manager know, and I'd be able to put in my application. I thanked him and he said, no, thank you. In my 35 years of being in sales and sales management, that was by far the most interesting performance review I've ever witnessed. I did not end up getting promoted. I ended up quitting shortly after this because they decided to not promote me and instead hired a guy with no sales experience to be our sales manager, and this rubbed me the wrong way. Also, our service department sucked and couldn't deliver on what I was selling, and another company offered me more money. The last story is, write me up. I love a good paper trail. Today I filled in for a coworker with COVID. I needed the hours and she needed coverage, so everyone wins. Well, almost. The second I clocked in, my boss, let's call her Kay, pulled me aside for a serious talk. She handed me a write-up for discussing salary with other employees. I'm paid a good bit more than others, being cross-trained and having relevant experience and education to back it up. The issue is I'm paid more than the assistant manager, and she's peeved that I make $2 more than her and has 8 years with the company, and I've been here only 2 months. My boss says it's a final notice. Next time is termination as per company rules. I pointed out this is in violation of not one but 2 federal laws, and she retorted, this is a right to work state. I'll fire you for chewing gum. Don't press it. So I bit my tongue and worked my shift without complaint. I get home, do a little research and find the exact place to help me, the National Labor Relations Board. I talk to an agent who helps me through the process of filing a claim and helps me upload both the pieces of incriminating evidence, both with corporate approval, and my manager's signed confession of retaliation and corporate policy in clear violation of federal law. They can't really defend themselves when drafting the incriminating paperwork to intimidate me. The real kicker is the penalty. On top of restitution to employees affected, me, they also lose government contracts. This hurts my job extra hard as a pharmacy. As a pharmacy tech, I know for a fact that 50% of our money is from Medicare and Medicaid programs that we will lose permanently. I've already got a job lined up and I was planning on jumping ship the day my new one started, but I couldn't be happier to burn the ship down on the way out. I haven't even informed my current job that I'll be leaving the second my background check clears, and I pick up my badge with a real healthcare provider that actually will put my skills to use. Poor Kay better hope she doesn't chew any gum because her boss is going to crucify her when they get served with papers. Kay can blame me all she wants, but at the end of the day she wrote her own termination paperwork by vilifying me for exercising my rights. Pretty petty on my part, but when you get a rare chance to end a beast, why not take the golden opportunity? Subscribe, hit the like button, and have a nice day.